Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Laura Makin-Isherwood and these are the headlines. Increasing the threat of a nuclear war, Russia says 4 Ukrainian regions, which Moscow claims to have annexed, are under the protection of its nuclear arsenal. Ukraine says the situation is critical after a barrage of Russian missile strikes target the country's energy infrastructure, damaging 30% of its power stations ahead of winter. UK Prime Minister Liz Truss holds a key cabinet meeting to try to stabilise her position after an economic crash forced her into a humiliating U-turn on tax reforms. Indonesia is set to demolish and rebuild a football stadium where a stampede killed more than 130 people earlier this month. And a member of India's 1983 World Cup winning squad, Roger Binny, is appointed as the 36th president of the Indian Cricket Board. He replaces former Indian captain Sourav Ganguly. The UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has apologised for what she called the mistakes made in her time in office so far. The UK PM was referring to a mini-budget which caused chaos in the UK financial markets, forcing the Bank of England to step in a bid to bring a sense of stability back. But Truss says she still intends to lead the Conservatives into the next general election.
What I'm focused on is delivering for the British public. Now, I recognise we have made mistakes. I'm sorry for those mistakes, but I've fixed the mistakes. I've appointed a new Chancellor. We have restored economic stability and fiscal discipline. And what I now want to do is go on and deliver for the public. We were elected on the 2019 manifesto. I'm determined to deliver on that. Levelling up, securing investment into all parts of our country, getting roads built, getting opportunities right across the nation. And that's what I'm thinking about and that's what I'm focused on.
Last week, Truss sacked her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng after only 38 days in office. On Monday, the new UK Chancellor Jeremy Hunt announced that he would reverse nearly all tax cuts announced by his predecessor. He even warned that more difficult decisions will have to be taken in time to come.
I'm sorry.
We are a country that funds our promises and pays our debts. And when that is questioned, as it has been, this government will take the difficult decisions necessary to ensure there is trust and confidence in our national finances. We are going to have very difficult decisions both on tax and spending in the next couple of weeks.
When asked by the opposition to explain her latest humiliating climb down, Truss has maintained silence, raising further speculation about her future. On Monday, she, instead of appearing in Parliament to answer an urgent question herself, sent out Minister Penny Mordaunt instead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Prime Minister to make a statement on the replacement of the Chancellor of the Exchequer during the current economic situation?
Mr. Speaker, with apologies to the Leader of the Opposition and the House, the PM is detained on urgent business. And they will have to make do.
I must hear the answer of why the Prime Minister is not here. Leader of the House.
I'm afraid you will have to make do with me, Mr. Speaker.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer accused Truss of leaving an utter vacuum in government, saying she was clinging to power, while one of his MPs also teased that she had been cowering under a desk.
And all we know right now is, unless she tells us otherwise, that the Prime Minister is cowering under her desk and asking for it all to go away.
Well, the Prime Minister is not under a desk.
Well, it's a turbulent political situation within the Conservative Party right now. There are only a few people openly defending Liz Truss within her party, and there's also been many rumours reported about potential plots to oust her from number 10. Truss is already facing claims that she's lost all authority. 4 Tory MPs have already publicly called for her to leave. Dozens of others are also said to be ready to put through a vote of no confidence. Well, for more on this, we can speak to Adam Schwartz now. He's a writer and political commentator joining us live from London. Adam, it's been a difficult weeks for Liz Truss, but she says that those mistakes, as she called them, that have been made since she took office have now been rectified. How's that going to go down?
Well, I think certainly just a sort of mild apology like that certainly will not go far enough into restoring really what she will find very difficult to do, which will be rescuing her premiership. And I think she really faces a triple issue that looks set to bring about a very premature end to her premiership. And firstly, that is a loss of credibility, no authority, and no democratic legitimacy. What we saw yesterday with the U-turn on tax cuts was really the biggest economic U-turn that we've seen in British political history. And if you look at the party's reaction to it, certainly, they don't consider that to be enough in terms of restoring her confidence. But I think also it's so important just to recognise that actually what she U-turned on was not simply just some sort of minor campaign promises that were made in an ambiguous way a long time ago. These were her signature policies that were made simply weeks ago as part of her election campaign. And so when you have that removed, really the kind of only thing that you're left with is kind of the person's character traits rather than any kind of ideology. And so that actually means that actually those qualities are brought much more into focus than they previously would be. And certainly based on Truss's performance over the last couple of weeks, I think no one could possibly say that actually Truss contained the kind of qualities that you really needed to be Prime Minister. So I think she's facing multiple different issues, which I think are going to be very, very difficult to row back on. But of course, her party is in a very difficult place where actually it has to either remain with a very, very unpopular leader who looks, based on opinion polls, will bring the Conservatives into the lowest number of seats that they've had in several decades, or change a leader for the second time mid-term, which of course would lead to calls for some kind of general election. So they're really damned if they do, damned if they don't. So I think Truss is in a very difficult situation, but I think certainly the fact that she's brought in Jeremy Hunt to sort of shield behind his credibility has bought herself a little bit of time. But really, most people are kind of counting the amount of time that she has to turn this around in days or weeks, and certainly not in months.
Liz Truss is saying in interviews that she does intend to take the Conservatives through to the next general election, whenever that may be. But of course, we've also heard those reports that MPs within the Conservative Party have been talking about a no confidence vote. But just talk to us about the procedure of that. Of course, the 1922 committee is that group of backbench Tory MPs. They are the ones that can effectively decide to remove a Prime Minister from office. But it's not that simple when somebody has only just been given that role, is it? Has she got a year, or do you think they might shift some of the rules to try to make that a bit faster?
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, formally, she has a year to be safe from a no confidence vote, which, of course, we saw Boris Johnson facing towards the end of his premiership. However, I think, ideally, and this is really historically the way that the Conservative MPs have removed leaders, they would actually try to force a resignation rather than try to force her out through some kind of procedure. But I think really, the route to doing that will be quite similar to what you would see as part of a formal confidence vote. You'll see letters go to Graham Brady, the chairman of the 1922 committee, who, if there are enough, MPs who submit those no confidence votes, well, it would ultimately lead to some kind of group of senior MPs going to see the Prime Minister and urging them to resign. And so I think really, there's at the moment no sort of set agreement on when that would take place or exactly how that would take place. But I think that's largely a result of the fact that there's kind of no obvious successor candidate at the moment. So I think certainly she's safe from a kind of procedural point of view from any kind of no confidence vote, but certainly all the noises that we're hearing from Conservative MPs seem to be suggesting that they are looking to mechanisms of how to remove her.
And of course, there's the other complication as well, isn't there, that if MPs remove her, then that's going away from the vote that actually came from Conservative Party members, those people that elected her to that position in the first place. Adam Shorts, writer and political commentator, thank you so much for your time.
Good to be with you.
Well, while the UK is struggling with political instability, the economic instability is becoming increasingly worrying for average households, as the impact of rising inflation looms over both the economy and, of course, public spending. As the UK cost of living crisis deepens, new data released by the Food Foundation charity says millions of people are forced to skip meals, and in some cases, people are not eating for the entire day. Data suggests nearly 1 in 5 low-income families experienced food insecurity in September. This means more people went hungry than during the first weeks of the COVID-19 lockdown. According to the Foundation's latest tracker, hunger levels have doubled since January, with nearly 10 million adults and 4 million children unable to eat regular meals last month. This has prompted calls for stronger measures to protect vulnerable households. The measures include demands for free school meals to be made available to an extra 800,000 children, and several activists have also condemned the government's refusal to rule out real terms cuts to benefits. According to the Food Foundation charity, last month more than 18% of UK households said they had reduced the size of their meals. 11% of households reported not eating despite being hungry, and 6% said they'd not eaten for a whole day. Meanwhile, a joint statement by organisations representing more than 2,000 UK food banks says they are struggling to meet unprecedented demand. Well, for more on this story, we can now go to our correspondent, Alex Isert, who's joining us from London now. Alex, just take us through some of these findings by the Food Foundation. They're pretty troubling statistics.
Absolutely, they are shocking, especially in a country that is so wealthy. It does seem really awful to hear that 1 in 5 are potentially not being able to eat, that having that food insecurity. And this, although it has got higher since September, it's actually been a problem for many years. In 2014, the Foundation also put out a report that suggests that there was a huge amount of food insecurity back then as well. Now, this particular report, as you mentioned a few there, for the statistics also talks about, the millions of adults and children who can't get their food. And with that, as also with the Truss Trust has also put out their own statement, which also suggests that they're seeing the same thing. With those 2,000 food banks putting together a statement asking for more unprecedented help, they are saying that they are at their limit, that there isn't enough food coming in, and there does really need to be a huge change to the system. You mentioned there about potentially giving free school meals. Well, a couple of days ago, last week, in fact, Therese Coffey and Jamie Oliver seem to be at loggerheads over this exact issue. So 800,000 extra free school meals could potentially be given out. However, there is actually an issue here with who do they go to? Jamie Oliver suggested that anyone with universal credit should be getting a free school meal. However, people who can earn up to £40,000 are on universal credit. So there seems to be a real issue here with the benefit system that the UK government is putting into place and what actually they're giving back. But ultimately, it shouldn't be reliant on the universal credit and those changes that potentially are going to come in next year for the price cap freeze. This is an issue that has been going on for far too long. And it seems now that since COVID and since some of the support is taken away, people are very worried and looking for food banks. They're looking for help. They're looking for community fridges, looking to their community to help them. And that is a really worrying trend.
One of the biggest redistributors of food waste from supermarkets, they basically take food from the shelves that are supposedly out of date but are still edible, and they redistribute them to charities in order to allow people to be given meals. That's a charity called Fair Share. They're saying that basically because now supermarkets are trying to reduce the amount of food waste that they produce, they're seeing a drop in donations. Is also people's incomes being hit by that inflation rise, maybe reducing the amount that they might be able to give to charities or perhaps donate in food? Is that going to hit those food banks as well, Alex?
I think the issue there with the food wastage, and that has also been something that has been rumbling on for many years. And going into any supermarket now, the shelves still aren't full. And we've had this problem since COVID began, when we weren't getting as many deliveries because of some of the issues getting the food into the country. So not even having that product on the shelf is obviously causing a huge issue for many people. And people are choosing cheaper options when they go to the supermarket. The fruit and vegetables aren't always cheap and go off quite quickly. So we're looking towards, a potential obesity dynamic here, because people are using more cheaper food, which is obviously full of sugars, carbohydrates, all of those kind of things. And then we're hearing also takeaways are potentially going to be doing a buy now, pay later, which could lead a lot of people into debt because they really need to eat now, but they just can't afford it. And where does that lead us? So all of these things are coming to a head at the moment because people are just looking for where can they eat, making sure that their children are getting enough, making sure that they are getting enough as well. And there also is a real issue here with food and with mental health issues that we've been seeing a lot since COVID has come about, because there was no extra support back then. So people are also looking for help in any way they can. The government last week suggested that they were going to put in £120 million to help with mental health, and that will include giving some extra costs to food. But where this food is coming from, well, that's a good question, because we aren't really producing that much within the UK, and we do rely a lot on exports and imports. So that needs to be also resolved. It seems to be that a lot of things have come together in one moment. We're still having problems with deliveries and distributions. We're still having issues with food waste, which is still going on despite it not going to these charities. There does seem a lot of things at the moment which are causing people to really be concerned. And now they've heard, of course, that in April that the price cap will no longer be available for them, and they're concerned about the future. Are bills going to go up? Should now there be a choice between eating and heating? All of these worries are concerns are going on to most of the population.
Alex, a very complicated picture building here in the UK with that cost of living crisis. Alex Isaac in London, thank you. Well, moving on to the Ukraine war now, and Russia has once again raised the threats of a possible nuclear attack. The Kremlin says that 4 regions of Ukraine that Moscow declares it has annexed in recent weeks fall under the protection of Russia's nuclear arsenal. The statement comes a month after Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Moscow was ready to use nuclear weapons if necessary to defend the territorial integrity of Russia. On the ground, Russian missiles continue to strike Ukrainian towns and cities, targeting key civilian energy and water infrastructure. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russian strikes had destroyed around 30% of the country's power stations in just 1 week. The fresh barrage of missiles has cut electricity to cities across Ukraine. Attacks at energy facilities have caused blackouts and disrupted water supplies. The strikes hit Kyiv, Kharkiv in the east, Mykolaiv in the south and central regions of Dnipro and Zhytomyr, where officials said hospitals were running on backup generators. The mayor of Zhytomyr city said that the attacks had knocked out the power and water supply. In the southeastern city of Dnipro, 2 explosions rocked an energy facility, while in the southern port city of Mykolaiv, a Russian missile struck an apartment building in the early hours. According to reports, that strike has killed at least one person. In Kharkiv, Ukrainian air defense forces shot down Russian S-300 missiles. Moscow denies targeting civilians. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, it claims it's carrying out attacks on military targets and energy infrastructure across Ukraine using high-precision weapons. Meanwhile, Ukraine accused Russia of kidnapping 2 senior staff at the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. According to Energoatom, the power station's head of information technology and an assistant to the plant's director have been seized. A Russian military plane has crashed into a residential area in Yeysk, a town in southwestern Russia near the border with Ukraine. At least 13 people have been killed and 25 others have been injured. According to officials, the Russian Su-34 fighter jet crashed into the residential building during a training flight from a military airfield. It's reported the incident occurred due to one of the engines catching fire. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement that the warplane suffered an engine failure and crashed in the port of Yeysk on the Sea of Azov. The crash resulted from an engine failure on takeoff, it's claimed. The statement said that both crew members had bailed out safely, but the plane crashed into a residential area, causing a fire as fuel exploded on impact. The Russian State Investigative Committee, which deals with serious crimes, has now opened a criminal case and sent investigators to the scene. Images and videos of the crash's aftermath show smoke billowing and fire blazing in the residential area. According to officials, a building believed to house hundreds of people was later engulfed in flames. The Kremlin said that Russian President Vladimir Putin was immediately informed about the crash and that he's ordered ministers of health and emergencies, along with the local governor, to head to that site. Putin has further instructed the authorities to provide all necessary assistance to the victims of the crash. According to local government security services, around 100 people have been evacuated from the building. Real Madrid striker Karim Benzema lifted his first Ballon d'Or trophy, edging out Bayern Munich's Sadio Mane and Manchester City's Kevin De Bruyne in a glittering ceremony in Paris. The 34-year-old says age is just a number after becoming the oldest winner of that prestigious award since English legend Stanley Matthews won the inaugural title 66 years ago at the age of 41. Benzema is the first Frenchman to win the Ballon d'Or since Zinedine Zidane in 1998, and it was only fitting that his former Real Madrid boss presented him with that trophy, awarded to the best footballer of the year. Benzema was the overwhelming favourite to win the title after a dream season with the Spanish Giants. The Frenchman netted 44 goals in 46 matches last season to help Madrid to a prestigious double of winning the Champions League and the Spanish La Liga. Benzema was clinical in the knockout stages of the Champions League, scoring successive hat-tricks in the round of 16 and the quarter-final match. His 3 goals across the 2 legs in the semi-final against Manchester City proved crucial for Madrid's progress to the final. And his exploits were not just limited to his club, as he also helped France lift their first UEFA Nations League title in October last year. Benzema succeeded Messi, who won the award for a record-extending 7th time last year, but was not among the nominees this time round after his first season with Paris Saint-Germain.
De voir ça devant moi, c'est une fierté. Je repense à quand j'étais petit, tout le travail où j'ai jamais lâché. C'était un rêve de gamin comme tous les gamins. J'ai grandi avec ça dans ma tête. Et puis après, j'ai eu de la motivation.
Spanish midfielder Alexia Putellas won the women's Ballon d'Or trophy for the second year straight, following another standout season with Barcelona. She pipped England's Euro 2022 winner Beth Mead and Chelsea's Sam Kerr. The 28-year-old scored 42 goals and delivered 22 assists last season. She won the Spanish league with Barcelona and reached the Champions League final. Putellas is currently recovering from a knee injury that saw her miss the Euro in England in July.
Estoy muy feliz de volver a estar aquí, muy contenta. La verdad que cuando hace un año conseguimos ganar el primero, me propuse yo misma intentar mejorar ese año para ponerlo al servicio del equipo y.
In other honours, Real Madrid's Thibaut Courtois won the Lev Yashin Award for the best goalkeeper last season. He made 9 saves in the final of the Champions League to keep a clean sheet in the 1-0 win against Liverpool in Paris. Robert Lewandowski didn't go home empty-handed either, as he picked up the Gerd Müller trophy for the best striker after scoring 50 goals for Bayern Munich last season. Another Barcelona player took the Under-21 Player of the Year as Gavi succeeded Pedri for the Copa Trophy, while Bayern Munich's Sadio Mane took home the inaugural Socrates Award with the Senegal international was recognised for his humanitarian efforts. Get it right. Manchester City controversially claimed the Club of the Year award, denying Real Madrid, who won the Champions League and La Liga titles. And from pillows and pastries to pancakes and foam, students do not miss any opportunities to get mess into each other's faces with any other nearest object. That's what's happened at the University of St Andrews in Scotland. Have a look at this.
The whole experience is just about getting out there, having fun, meeting your friends and just screaming them in the face if you can.
Well, on that's all we have time for on this WION Live broadcast from London. Hope you have a great day.
There are many other